there are, well, how many are, too many to count. There are a lot of undefeated teams left in the country right now. Some of them are going to be there wire to wire. Some of them, you'll look back in mid-November and say, man, remember when that team was being hyped when they were undefeated? Turns out they just hadn't really played anyone with a pulse yet. So we need to separate the wheat from the chaff, as they say back home. You know, being the big farmer I was growing up. Alabama and Georgia, I don't think we need to waste a whole lot of time on here. Now, I did want to tell you, I should have gotten a fancy graphic made. I did want to tell you for the record, our model, which has a very good grasp on these programs and always has Bama minus 1.25 points on a neutral field. So Bama minus 1. Essentially a pick 'em. I mean, it sees it pretty much like the rest of the country does. The question on everyone's mind right now seems to be, will anyone else emerge to sort of close that gap? And how wide is the gap between those two? At the expense of drawing some ire from some of my best friends, these are not invincible teams. I know that's unpopular to say right now. Georgia has not faced a quarterback with a pulse, at least flowing through his right or left arm. That doesn't mean they're not good. I'm just telling you, there are probably some minor vulnerabilities that you haven't been able to see yet. Alabama, man, I'm telling you, there are parts of their offensive line that are susceptible to a really good pass rush. They had trouble all day snapping the ball last week. It didn't bite them. Do you know, by the way, what Alabama's going to look like if one more running back is hobbled? Does anyone know what that looks like? Do we know if more receiver talent is going to emerge there? Have you seen the inability of Alabama's secondary to tackle in some situations? It's all masked because they're winning. And even though I'm pointing out these relative vulnerabilities, and I do mean relative, it's likely no one on the regular season schedule is going to be able to beat them. What I'm making these points to illustrate is it's not insurmountable that someone out there like Ohio State or like Oklahoma can end up finding their groove and being able to challenge those teams. Not on October 9th or whenever we're playing these games, but in late December, early January, it's feasible. So what I'm saying is, don't write the last chapter of the 2021 college football season in October. It's not that easy to figure out. Having said that, yeah, I think they're a definitive 1-2 right now, then a pretty big gap. In no particular order, I do want to look at these other teams right quick. So Iowa, and I'm going to give you the AP rank and then our rank. The AP has Iowa at 3rd right now. We have them in the JP poll at 10th. We don't rank. This is not a ranking. It's a power rating. So I want to make that clear, even though it falls on deaf ears. And they play Penn State this week. So Penn State, AP, and JP agree, 4-4. This is the end of a critical opening stretch for Penn State. Remember, this is one of the biggest talking points that we touched on numerous times in August. We knew Penn State was coming off a terrible year, and we knew that the fan base there was willing to forgive it and explain it away due to COVID, as were we, but there had to be validation on the field to start the year. And they got beat in the box score, but won on the scoreboard against Wisconsin, and then they came home a couple of weeks later, one possession win against Auburn, and now you're kind of off to the races. You got Indiana, they come in there, they get shut out, and this is the 4th game. This is the one at Iowa. After they get through this, they got to bye. So they're at the moment, I think, a 1-point dog on the road at Iowa. We picked Penn State to win that game, barely. So if Penn State wins that game, they got to bye. And then there's a second stretch that comes up a couple of weeks down the road. It goes at Ohio State, and then eventually they're going to play Michigan, and they're going to go to Michigan State to end the year. The question's going to be, by that point, will Penn State have any wiggle room? The answer to that question will be given to you this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, at Kinnick Stadium. What about Oklahoma? What do you think about Oklahoma? There's a pretty wide degree of differing opinion out there about Oklahoma right now. AP has them 5. JP poll has them 8th. They are in the middle of probably the most treacherous stretch of their schedule, and they're still undefeated, and that's obviously very important. So they went to Kansas State last week, and they won. Doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 100. If you're Oklahoma and it's Manhattan, Kansas, just win. Just go full Al Davis on them. Just win, baby. Then they got Texas this week, and then they've got TCU the week after that. Then you get to cool off for a second. Then there's a second stretch for Oklahoma that goes at Baylor, Iowa State, at Oklahoma State. That's kind of to end the year. So Oklahoma's in a good spot right now, and here's the added bonus. They have not played their best ball yet, presumably. I believe that. They have not played their best ball. Their best game is still ahead. So if you're undefeated and you have not put your A-list effort together yet, that's a good thing. Texas wants to know if it's going to happen Saturday. So do I. But that's a good thing. So I'll see Oklahoma in person Saturday for the first time this year. What about Michigan? Talked about the Wolverines on the road in Lincoln, Nebraska Saturday night. AP has them 8th. We agree. We got them 9th, so we're not really all that much different than the AP. They got Nebraska Saturday. Then they're going to go to Michigan State in a few weeks, and they've got a road game at Penn State coming up. They got a lot of tough challenges on the road starting this week. And then they've got Ohio State coming in there. And you're going to have to forgive me and a lot of other people if you don't see that goose egg in the loss column for Michigan and you don't let your mind start to wonder just a second. As much as we don't believe in looking down the road in the regular season, to just think about the fact that Ohio State has stubbed their toe a time or two, already have a loss, by the way, and you know Michigan doesn't, and you know that streak is at like a quarter century at this point, and you know that game's eventually going to be played in Ann Arbor. And me sitting here knowing full well I've never been able to go to Ohio State, Michigan in my life. And I am begging. I would pull money out of my pocket and put it on the table if I had it and if it would work to be able to make that game have consequence to that degree at the end of the year. So Michigan, we kind of agree with the AP on them. Cincinnati, we are dead even on agreement. They got them 6, we got them 6. It's important to note now, since they've already gotten through these 2 games on the road against Power 5 competition, they're going to be a double-digit favorite in a couple of the biggest remaining games. Not this week. I think they play Temple this week. But they've got UCF coming into town next week, and they're going to be a double-digit favorite against them. And then SMU, they're still undefeated. I had our buddies at collegefootballunlimited.com. I had them run a simulation for me on that game. What would the Cincinnati SMU line be right now, according to their model? Because I don't have the line simulation in my model. And they would favor Cincinnati by 16. That's a pretty fat spread. In fact, their model would like them against SMU more than they'd like them against UCF, just to give you an idea. So it's there to be had for Cincinnati. SMU, for the record, AP has them 24th. We have them 27th. Still not taking them serious as a legitimate, undefeated kind of contender quite yet. We'll see. Would love for them to prove me wrong. All right, some other ones right here. I'm just going to go down a list because, this would take an hour if I didn't. Brigham Young is the biggest disagreement right now. The AP has them 10th. The JP poll has them 29th. We've made money off Brigham Young already this year, and yet the JP poll's not taking them serious. They've been winning games, and yes, that's what counts, blah, blah, blah. And if they win out, I do want to stress this because I don't think it's going to happen, but if I'm wrong, which has happened before, and they win out, that is a schedule that warrants a college football playoff spot. Make no mistake about it. That would be a more impressive resume than Cincinnati. I don't think we're going to be having that conversation, is what I'm saying. They may lose Saturday against Boise. It really has struck some people that I may not like Brigham Young, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. You guys wear the exact same wardrobe at games that I wear on the show. Why would I dislike Brigham Young? Michigan State, AP's got them 11. We got them 19th. Now, they're at Rutgers Saturday, and then they got a trip to Indiana. They got a bye, and then they got Michigan. So a really interesting stretch coming up here for Mel Tucker. They are not a team that is deep and talented enough to overlook anyone. Like this game against Rutgers, I think they're favored by 5. They should win the game, but it's not some blowout. This is not the kind of team, as presently constructed, that can afford to throw their helmet out there and win games just because they're undefeated. Oklahoma State, big variance here. AP has them 12. We have them 26th. We do not buy Oklahoma State as a legitimate Big 12 contender right now, at least in terms of caliber of team. You have to take them seriously in terms of record, obviously. But they've still got their biggest test coming up. A couple of them, actually. Kentucky, AP has them 14. We have them 18. They play LSU Saturday. Kentucky then has a trip to Georgia the following week. Who knows? The Renaissance Tour may be in Athens next week. Coastal Carolina, this is to be expected. Wide discrepancy. AP has them 15th. We have them 30th. It's a great team. It's a great team for the caliber of athlete they have. It is not a team that matches up with even some of the 2-loss teams out there right now. It is not a team that matches up with them. And that's all I'm going to say, and I will get a lot of pushback on that. And Wake Forest, AP has them 20. We have them at 25. Wake is an interesting team there, though, because I got to give you full disclosure. There's some teams our model has a better grip on than others. I don't know if our model has a good grip on Wake Forest. So there are a lot of people who think Wake's the favorite to win the ACC right now. I don't know that there is a favorite to win the ACC. I just got a lot of teams that I'm not favorable on. I don't know who the favorite is. It could be one of the most inconsequential ACC title games we've seen in quite some time. I will say that. So those are some of the undefeated teams right now our thoughts on them. I think I'm going to start updating that list because the whole JP poll, AP poll ranking, normally what we see is towards the end of the year, what the AP poll ranking ends up being on those teams falls a lot more in line with where we've been for a little while. Not always. We're going to whiff on a couple of those teams, but we'll be right more times than not.